Make me need to want to throw my shoe because it was so good. But I don't know if I have to explain that to everybody if my shoe went flying across the platform. Thank you, Jennifer Hudson, for teaching me that little thing. So we are in our series, Remembering the Way, where I'm talking about going back and seeing what might it have been like to be part of that early ministry, part of the early church. And as I was doing my research, there's a quote from Charles that's going to come up in a minute, but he's referencing a hymn that is one of my favorites, "Where He Leads Me, I Will Follow." And I remember singing that in the Methodist church as I'd say growing up, but it was like later on in my teen growing up years. But I can remember learning the stories and how Jesus lived his life and thinking, I'm in, I'll follow you. Like, show me the way, literally show me the way. And Charles sheds a little bit more light into this when he looks at it metaphysically. And for those of you who I'm referencing Charles and you're wondering who Charles Fillmore is, he is co-founder of the Unity Faith, the Unity Movement, with his wife, Myrtle Fillmore. So we're going to get a lot of Charles today, so get ready and settle in. He says, when we sing, I'll go with him all the way, we do not always realize the mighty import of our words. Jesus went all the way from human to divine. He went all the way to immortality. He raised not only his consciousness from despair and hopelessness to assurance and confidence in the presence and continued help of a loving Father God, but he opened the way for the whole race to do likewise. When we determine to follow him all the way, we undertake the mighty work of the ages, a revolution of character before which the famous tasks of Hercules pale in significance. So what is it like for us to follow the way, to be part of the way? In our human expression, sometimes I think we might forget the power that we have that is within us, that we are part of that divine spark. And when we tap into that energy, it moves us beyond ordinary, and it moves us to extraordinary because we are that. We are extraordinary beings. And with that, we can be bold. We can be bold as we walk in our journey with others. Eric Butterworth is another Unity minister, Unity author, one of my favorites, and he shares this. And I love his analogies because I never would have thought of it like this, but it's good. God is not in you the same sense that a raisin is in a bun. God is in you as the ocean is in a wave. The wave is nothing more nor less than the ocean expressing as a wave. Each faith tradition can boldly express itself and still be one with God, one with each other. And it's been an interesting moment in Unity history this week. We, as a New Thought denomination, had a vote this week where we decided there's two entities in Unity. There's Unity Worldwide Ministries, Unity Worldwide Headquarters. Both Unity, but they offered kind of like two departments and two separate entities. And there was a vote to combine the two, and it was an overwhelming yes. And it was an interesting time for me because as one to vote, it's like, do we combine? Do we not combine? What are the benefits? What are the risks? And one of the ministers shared something that Charles Fillmore said in 1928. So we all know Fillmores were kind of ahead of their time a lot. And I love his perspective on this. He says, Unity as a religion does not claim to have discovered anything new. We have simply gathered and unified all that is good in many religions. We do not claim that we have discovered any new truths, nor that we have any special revelation of truth. There is truth in every religion, It is my privilege to take truth from any source, put it into my religion, and make fundamental as a rule of action in my life. That is what Unity students do. Still speaking as Charles, 38 years ago, Mrs. Fillmore and I began this Unity work. It was a very small beginning. We studied various religions, but it was not satisfied to accept any of them wholly. He said, "There are so many religions. Let us go ahead for ourselves. Let's do what we think is best and ask God to be with us and lead us and guide us." And we began our work in one little room downtown, and it has grown gradually. We have studied many isms and many cults. Now I'm speaking aside to a definition caveat. Every religion by definition is a cult. Back to Charles. People of every religion under the sun claim that we either belong to them or have borrowed the best of our teachings from them. We have borrowed the best of all religions. That is the reason why we are Unity. The name Unity borrowed from lost my track. The name of Unity was revealed to us by Spirit. One day in one of our little meetings, I do not think we had more than a dozen in attendance. It was given to me in a flash. Your name is Unity. Then and there we adopted the name. Before that, we called ourselves Practical Christians, New Thoughters. In fact, as we called ourselves any old thing, we had just wandered about the wilderness of isms. When we had adopted to define a name, a plan work began to unfold, and we saw great possibilities of unity. Where we wobbly until the name Unity became, and then we seemed to be crystallizing the idea of our minds. We found that we could group under the name Unity all the different cults that we had thought out and worked out. In this way, we established the fundamentals of the doctrine called Unity. And I love that aspect of Unity, that each different church entity can worship in the way that works for them. Practical Christianity is our jam here. And there are other Unity churches that are more very, very, very universal. But there's other parts that I really love about our congregation here is that we have a Hindu congregation that worships every Friday here. And they visited us last week and did a presentation and told us all about Diwali. And it brings me such joy that there are two different waves of the ocean of God in congregations worshiping under this one roof. And we're speaking together of togetherness and doing things together. So we have our project that we're doing right now is the Meals in a Bag. And they are also simultaneously doing a food drive for theirs. And so we are going to cross our projects over together so that way we have sacred service, seva, together at the same time between us and our friends and our family. Because I really felt after our visit last Sunday, we became family. And it is that uniqueness of each place coming together to be boldly as we relate to the divine. So how do you boldly shine? Jesus awakened the consciousness to see miracles, to declare God expressing in us to bring about miracles. The miracles he performed healed the body and the mind. And the big takeaway is to allow us to become aware of our wholeness. Just as the woman in the crowd of people said, "If I just touch the hem of his garment, I will be healed." And his response to her was, "Woman, it was your faith that healed you." And so in our journey, in our walk, there are so many different forms of healing. There's physical body healing, but there's systemic healing. There is consciousness healing. There is emotional healing. There is this wave of recognizing the divinity within each of us. And that was Jesus's big part of his ministry. It is allowing us to recognize the divinity that dwells within us. In in growing up, my dad's side of the family was Pentecostal. Most of them still are Pentecostal. And I got to hear a lot of stories about healing, a lot of stories about faith. And they tell the story of when my grandfather was diagnosed with kidney cancer. And Grandma said, I'm doing a laying on of hands. She called it healing hands. A lot of us call it Reiki. It's this energy work of spirit working in and through us. And it's this interesting chain reaction of faith at movement here, because Grandma had faith in the healing power. Grandpa had faith. So there comes the time for the surgery. They go in for surgery. They come out of surgery, and the doctor says, I can't explain it. There's nothing there to remove. And I took that moment to realize that there are possibilities beyond things that we can explain, and there's things that in our faith, in our movement of our faith, it reminded me that, because a lot of people feel this guilty thing, like if something's not coming fast enough or the healing's not happening, that there's been this spiritual malpractice of guilt that people have laid on, like you must not have had enough faith. That's malarkey. Everybody has all the faith they're going to get the moment they take their first breath, because it's unlimited. Our awareness of the faith changes over time. Sometimes life just happens and we get distracted and we kind of lose our grounding a little bit. We lose our footing a little bit. But what faith do we have that brings events and people into alignment with the greater good? Because to me, it's not all about the miracles that happen at an instant. And if we go along expecting life's miracles to just, those are so few and far between. But I've seen so many miracles that gradually unfold like a rose budding over time, if we allow ourselves to be patient, if we allow ourselves to keep moving through that faith journey that we have. What faith do you have that can bring about change? A change where a person sees God in every other person, with no judgment, no condemnation, no distance. Imagine every person you see, every single one of them, even the ones that rub you the wrong way, and you see the spark of the divine in them. And you hold that to be the truth, all capital TRUTHs, all caps. When we follow the way, there are no prerequisites to the love that we extend. There's no prerequisites to the healing that we extend. There's no prerequisites to the help and the goodness that we extend. We extend because everything is God. All of it. Everything. So do you dare to be bold? Do you dare to stand for things and lift other people up? And do you dare to call out things that are out of alignment? Because in Jesus' ministry, he wasn't just a wand, you're healed, you're healed, you're healed, and went about his way. If there was something that was out of alignment, he held people to point. He called it out. He flipped tables. So if we see things that oppress others, are we going to be bold enough to say, that doesn't align with my faith? If we see something that causes to bring about hate, are we going to be bold enough to walk it? If we see someone that misuses sacred text for selfish reasons, are you going to call it out? And it could be unintentional. It could be you just didn't know. It could be somebody just needed a different point of view. So you can have a curiosity question instead of, you're thinking wrong. It could be I like your perspective. Here's my perspective. And you just engage in conversation. Your faith is such an important process in your power to be bold. You, in this oneness with God, are part of a partnership. The things in life that amaze you can't happen without you. They can't. Allow your faith to open the possibilities for you and for others. What would it be like if we had those moments of faith where you encouraged somebody on their way enough that they were able to get their bearings and the light within them rekindled even brighter and even brighter and even brighter? That's what it is. That's what it's all about. That is what is following the way is. We are not in it to be, oh, look at me, I did blah, blah, blah. It's a partnership in a way that we are tour guides on a journey. Have you been down this road? There's so many amazing things down this road. There's love, there's friendship, there's kindness, there's encouragement. You should come take a look. You'll like it. It's fun. There's going to be many stops within us and within each other. Sometimes we take the fork in the road and we go a different way. But there are so many ways that we can go along with each other side by side, and we can be bold together. We can fall back onto the early teachings in this series where we release what doesn't serve us anymore. We spend our time in prayer. We spend good communion time with God so that we know that we are that spark, that entity, that goodness that brings about the goodness in the world. I love how the ocean made the perfect and right analogy for this, that we are waves that can change a landscape gently, preferably not hurricane-style change, but together in the oneness, recognizing that we are bold enough to practice our faith how we practice it and celebrate how other people practice their faith is such an amazing thing that brings such good change in this world. I would lay odds that there are other aspects in nature that remind us of this same power of boldness. How the ecosystems work together. How I saw this article of a scientist who declared that the forest weep when certain birch trees are removed from that forest. Scientifically proved it. And I can't go into the details because I am so not left-brained. But I just sat in amazement of it that somebody thought, I wonder if the forest gets sad. Like that thought never crossed my mind as a forest gets sad. But she was able to scientifically prove it. And for us, we can mirror that. When we see other humans hurting, we get sad and we want to do something and we want to share our goodness and we want to share our love to fix it, to make it better. And so in that project that we are doing, there are the recipe cards up here if you want to take one as you come up for the offering. And all the items that you need for the recipe are there. You put all the items in a gallon-sized sandwich bag, or two if it takes two. Just let me know that these two things are one recipe. And we will get them to people. I found a good Facebook group in the Austin area that people will post, I need, and then people will respond, we have. And so I was waiting for our stock to build up just a little bit more before I could say, we have. And so this is working, and in combination with our Hindu group that meets here for Seva, that's their term for sacred service, that we can be bold and make a change. And so during our time of offering, I ask that you come forward. If you received, when you walked in, there's a blessing card or a leaf, because I did leaves for fall. You can write down what you're grateful for, your gratitudes, place those in the offering, place monetary gifts in the offering. And then when you come over to this side, grab an affirmation to carry you through the week. If you feel called to do so, grab one of the cards. Then when you come back next week, bring the meal bag. I'm not going to look to see who takes a card, who doesn't take a card. If you feel called to do it, do it. If you don't, don't. And so now we celebrate our walk of abundance as our choir leads us in Something's Calling Me by Jamie Loomer.